Ohayo gozaimasu. O genki desu ka? This is Mentor Lourdes again. Welcome to the discussion proper of the Japanese language. So far, this is our first Japanese tutorial session. First of all, Japanese does not have alphabets, but they established their own writing system called the syllabary script. There are very significant differences between Japanese and English, particularly sentence structure, but that's not my main topic in this video today. I'll make another video for that topic. Let's start from the very basic by learning the sounds of the Japanese characters. How to compare the Japanese characters and the English alphabets is a little tricky for me. There's a simple reason why Japanese can't pronounce R and L correctly. They don't exist in the Japanese syllabary. The sound of R in Japanese is somewhere between R and L. So rice gets pronounced lice and balloons as baroons. The absence of the L sound in the Japanese syllabary, which they always speak as ir, makes it harder for the Japanese people to learn English pronunciation correctly, since they are forced to use their tongues differently. That's why when speaking in a Japanese accent, you will have to pronounce lake as reik, because it's hard for them to say the letter L. So they are forced to use their tongue differently. As mentioned, the Japanese doesn't have alphabets, but they developed the syllabary script. Let's get familiar with the different Japanese characters in the syllabary script. There are 3 Japanese writing systems. The oldest is the kanji, and the second is the katakana, and the newest of the 3 is the hiragana. Since evolution happens, they started to learn romanizing the Japanese characters. And the romanization of the Japanese characters is called Romaji. Romaji is the writing system using the English alphabets. So we don't have to study the Japanese characters in order to learn the Japanese language unless we love to. As said, romanizing is writing Japanese words using the English letters, also called Romaji. Now let's study the Japanese syllabary. But disregard the Japanese characters because we are focusing on the sounds of the characters and not on the writing system. Take a closer look at each character. Traditionally, Japanese is written and printed in columns from top to bottom and from right to left. In here, I marked with arrows to indicate the direction in reading. Here we go. Let's start from the upper right to the bottom. Follow me. A, I, U, E, O. Again. A, I, U, E, O. Ka, ki, ku, ke, ko. Sa, shi, su, se, so. Ta, ti, tsu, te, to. Na, ni, nu, ne, no. Ha, hi, hu, he, ho. Ma, mi, mu, me, mo. Ya, yu, yo. Da, di, du, de, do. Wa, wo. Let's study the H column. Ha, hi, hu, he, ho. Notice the spelling of hu. It's Fu instead of Hu. Fu, because there is no F sound in the Japanese. So instead of fu is hu, like Fuji. Fuji, not Fuji. Remember, no F sound in Japanese. Let's proceed to the Y column. In Y column, there are actually 3 characters. Ya, yu, yo. The characters in red color are not actually found in the Japanese syllabary. So there is no sounds as yi, ye in Japanese syllabary. Let's move to the W column. Wa, wo. Only 2 characters exist in the W column. It means the 3 characters in red, wi, wu, we, do not exist in the Japanese syllabary. So no sounds as wi, wu, we in Japanese. In the last column, we have the n or m sound. It depends upon what letter comes after it. Here's the guide on how to pronounce n in Japanese. N is pronounced as M before the letters M, P, or B. For example, konbanwa. N in kom is pronounced as M because the letter that comes after N is B, and as a rule, pronounce N if the letter that comes after it is B. Konbanwa. 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 Again, if N comes before M, P, and B, pronounced N as M. Konbanwa. On the other hand, pronounce N before N, T, D, Ts, or Dz. Example, nan desu ka? Nan desu ka? The word nan ends with letter N. And since N comes before the letter D in des, it is pronounced as N. Nothing changed. N. Nan. Nan. Nan desu ka? Nan desu ka? N takes the sound of NG or ng before letters K and G. For example, genki, genki, genki. N comes before K. That's why it takes the sound of ng or ng. Genki, genki. Nan desu ka? Nan desu ka? Genki, genki. If N is at the end of the word, it takes the sound of ng, as in sang, 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 instead of san, san. It is pronounced as sang, sang, sang. Additional characters are added in the Japanese syllabary, and they are called consonant clusters. If consonant letters are combined with another consonants, they are called consonant clusters. Let's practice the following consonant clusters. Kya, kyu, kyo. Gya, gyu, gyo. Sha, shu, sho. Ja, ju, jo. Cha, chu, cho. Nya, nyu, nyo. Hya, hyu, hyo. Bya, byu, byo. Pya, pyu, pyo. Mya, myu, myo. Ya, yu, yo. Romanization of Japanese characters, or Romaji, is a system of writing in Japan using the English alphabet. When romanizing Japanese, we will only use the vowels A, I, U, E, and O, and consonants K, G, S, Z, J, T, D, N, H, F, B, P, M, Y, R, and W. That's 21 letters in total, 5 vowels and 16 consonants. The Japanese syllabary actually contains fewer letters than the English alphabet. The sounds in Japanese are the reasons why it's easier for the English speakers to learn the Japanese language or the Japanese sounds than for the Japanese speakers to learn English. English has many sounds not found in Japanese, and on the other hand, the main sound that the English speakers struggle when speaking Japanese is L and R. Generally speaking, Japanese were not born with the English alphabets because they developed their own syllabary, so they are used to their tongue, mother tongue. And unlike the Filipinos and other citizens of English-speaking countries, it's easier for us to learn the Japanese language than for the Japanese people to learn the English sounds. That's all for now for the Japanese character sounds. Domo arigato. Sayonara! じゃあまた。